There's a version of limitation that lives in your circumstances. And there's a version that lives in the language you use to describe your limitations, the beliefs that you inherited before you were old enough to question them, and the identity that you built to survive a version of your life you have long since outgrown. This show is here to dismantle the latter. I'm Zhanna Blazej, your host of the Beyond Limitations podcast. Welcome. We go deep here into the decisions that feel heavy, the patterns that keep repeating, the places where something in you already knows it's time to move differently. Every episode created to give you something real, a framework, a reframe, a truth that shifts the way you see what is possible. Because the life and business you are building deserves more than surface level answers. Let's get into it. Welcome to today's episode of the Beyond Limitations podcast with your host, Zhanna Blazej. I'm really excited for our guest today, Miss Raema Mauriello of Gifty Gal, a dear friend of mine who I had the privilege to meet just a little over a year and a half ago, and also had the privilege of working with her in a business capacity. Right now, she is a raving example of what's possible when we put focused intention and then the action to back it up. She is seeing 36% year over year growth in her business. I'm so excited to have you here with us today. And I'd love for you to take a moment. And for those that don't know who you are, introduce yourself. Tell us a little bit about your story and how we got here today.
My name is Raema, and I started Gifty Gal back in 2022. So we are going on 4 years this year. And it originally started with the thought that I would do baby shower baskets and birthday gifts and more customized, personalized gifts. And it quickly launched into the corporate space. So now we are working primarily with people in sales, managers over marketing departments, businesses that are launching. We are doing a ton of different gifts for these clients. And that is where I have seen the exponential growth in my business.
That's incredible. So your business came from one idea.
At the time, I was working on staff at our church, and there were about 4 women on the team that were pregnant. And I have such a heart for first-time moms because kind of going back to when I had my first child, I was 20 years old and I had nothing. I knew nothing. And a very kind woman gave me a ton of her baby stuff that her son had grown out of. I remember that generosity planted a seed in my heart. And I thought to myself, I want to be able to pay it forward someday. Anytime I was invited to a baby shower, I was very extravagant with the gifts that I would put together and give them. So now jumping forward, the 4 women were pregnant on staff. I was invited to their baby showers, and I had these 4 massive baby shower gifts sitting on my floor in my office. And my husband walks in and he looks at them and he goes, "You should do that as a business," and just walked out of the office. And in my mind, I was like, I already have a job, first of all, but also who's going to pay me to do this was my original thought. Is there even a market for this? And I decided to just go for it and see what happens. And within, I would say 4 months of launching my business, I had my first corporate job on the books.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
So you took one idea,
Yeah.
more than likely your husband.
Yeah.
And rather than sit in the story, the narrative of who's going to actually pay me for this? Like, what are you talking about? One thing that I recognize in you, which is an amazing character, is you have a very short gap between idea and execution, which is a testament to why you've been able to grow so quickly.
I think one of the things that is the biggest hindrance is our own belief in ourselves. And I think sometimes all it takes is for one person to see something in you and to speak it into you. So he must have seen I have the talent to do it, but also I have the skill set to make it happen. I didn't see it in myself, but he must have seen it. And I really valued his input and his opinion and him speaking that into me because he's a business owner and he is an executive at another company and he's done it and he's done it well. So for him to see it in me was flattering that he thought I could do something like that. And I thought very small. I was like, okay, we'll start with maybe just this and see what happens. My perspective is always, well, let's just see what happens. And I started an Instagram page. And then I started a LinkedIn profile for my business. And I did a LinkedIn post that this is what I was doing. And it was from that LinkedIn post, just one LinkedIn post that I had. My husband shared it, which went to his network. And then I had another friend who was in corporate that shared it, went to his network. And that happened maybe 4 or 5 times. And that's where I got my first corporate gift salesperson that was interested in utilizing my gifting services to help them with prospecting gifts. So every step along the way, it was just, let's see what happens with this. I'm going to do this and let's see what happens. I never ran Instagram ads. I didn't do anything like that. I just posted photos of things that I had done and it organically grew. And I did good work consistently and people saw that. And then I had other businesses get behind it and business owners and people in sales get behind it because they trusted other people's recommendations of my work. And that is how it has grown to where it is. But taking one step at a time. And in my brain, they were baby steps, but that's all I knew to do was what's my next step? What's something I have in my hands that I can do now? Instagram is free. I can do that. LinkedIn's free. I can do that. And from there, I realized I probably shouldn't be paying retail value for the gifts, the items that are going in the basket. So then I had to think strategically of what are my next steps. Oh, I need a wholesale license so I can get wholesale prices on items. I need an LLC because I don't want to commingle our family finances with my business finances. So it's every step along the way. It's okay, what's next? And it was always presented as like a problem. I've noticed like the commingling of funds starting to get sloppy. Now, what do I do to solve that problem? Google's free. I think a lot of us see a problem and we quit because we're like, I don't know what to do. When it's that helpless, I don't know what's next. Now we have AI and ChatGPT that can help us with what our next steps are. But just getting gritty with it and just figuring it out. And if you want it to grow, okay, what's the next step to help you grow? And I think that's where you come into play is I didn't really have goals. I just was like, what do I do next? I was kind of going with the flow of the river that was already moving instead of being in a canoe paddling faster down the river and partnering with people that knew more than I knew, had the skill set I did not have, had knowledge I did not have, could even foresee things I needed to be doing and helped coach me along that took it to the next level, even setting goals financially for my business and what do you want it to look like next year and partnering with people has actually taken it way beyond anything I ever imagined this business to be.
And it's really great to hear you break it down with such simplicity because it's one of my favorite things that I speak on is the micro step. What's next? How do you how do you break free from limitation? When you do that by instead of saying, I don't know, and changing that narrative to how can I? And then the answer will come. You'll get the idea, or you'll ask a person, or like you said, go on Google. If you're solution oriented and your brain is looking for a way that you can, the way will always be provided. And that's such an important next step for everybody listening. If you have something that you've been thinking about, it's sitting on the back burner, you're like, I can't possibly do that. The first thing is just the awareness of, oh, I'm telling a story here. If I did know what was next, what would I do? And it's usually the first thought that comes to mind. Seeking out counsel, Googling it, or listening to the next thing, which doesn't always make sense. I'd love to hear a little bit more of your background and where you came from. And what I truly believe is the fuel behind your success and your ability to take action. It's that obedience. So can you share a little bit about that with our listeners?
When I was 18, I joined the Navy. Honestly, it was to get out of the town I was in. I had seen the people that were still in that town, and I was like, I want to travel. I want to do something different with my life. College wasn't in the cards for me yet, and so the military was the path that I chose. And when I got to the military, that is very much you become a leader by just listening to instructions and just doing what they say and not fighting it and not getting into arguments about why, how come. It's just do the thing and do it well and keep your mouth shut. And I was like, I can do that. So in boot camp, I led our division because I could follow instructions and I could tell instructions easily. So that was my first indicator that, oh, maybe there's future here for me. And when I got to my first command, I remember sitting in a room with everybody else in the department that I worked in at the time. And this guy came in and he said, who wants to train to become a search and rescue swimmer? And my hand shot in the air. And I was like, I'll do it, because it got me out of doing the mundane work that we were currently doing, which was sweeping and painting. It got me out of it. So I was like, I'll do it. And I knew how to swim because I was born and raised in Minnesota and we're on the lakes all the time. And so swimming, I knew how to swim. And he asked who wants to. And it didn't say what man wants to, what color of a person wants to. It was who wants to. And I was like, me. And at the time, as I was training, a female search and rescue swimmer was unheard of because the training is so hard. The school you go through is really hard for anyone to complete, let alone a woman. And so I was sent to search and rescue school, and we had a really big, I think we started with 21 people. I was the only woman in the class. The fact that I qualified and passed any of the tests to be able to go was miraculous. And then just being there and having to now compete against these men that are so much bigger than me, faster than me. This just was a more natural fit for a man versus I'm 5'3", weighed 110 pounds. You know, so it's like I didn't stand a chance against these men. And the course was 4 weeks long. Every single day, you're swimming from 8 a.m. to 5 p.m. And it was super rigorous. And all of a sudden, the men just started dropping like flies. They just started dropping out of the class. They started quitting. And everything in me was like, I'm going to beat them if it kills me. If I'm going to finish this, if it kills me. Because I didn't want to have to go back to my command that sent me and say, I failed. So I went to the hospital one time, so I pulled a muscle in my ankle. It was a whole thing. But there was 8 of us that ended up graduating. And I was the only female standing there. The rest of them were men, and all the other men quit. And I was like, I'm not quitting. And I ended up winning an award. I got accommodations from the ship because I made the ship look really good because I'm one of 7 women in the entire fleet that had this qualification at the time. And from there, I was like, I'm not going to let anybody tell me I can't do it. And so that planted the seed of, I'm going to figure it out. I will outwork you. I will stay up later than you. I will do what I have to do. I will be uncomfortable, but you're not going to get me to quit. Maybe it's spite. I don't know. Call it what you want to, but it's in me that I'm like, if this is for me, I'm going to fight tooth and nail to have it. And so I met my husband. We were stationed together in the Navy and then got pregnant. And fast forward through life, we ended up getting out of the Navy after 4 years. I had some odd end jobs. Like I was a temp at a temp agency. I actually got fired from one of the temp jobs I got because I didn't know Excel. But yeah, I just had a bunch of random jobs. And then I got a job working for a ministry when we were in California for a year. And that got me foot in the door for really falling in love with ministry, putting my hands tangibly to build God's house. And then we moved to Texas and I helped our church that we're with currently, we helped them plant their church. And building something from nothing, I love doing that. I love getting to have my fingerprint on things and getting to watch something start very small and grow and watch it become something so beautiful. My faith is found in Jesus. So everything I do comes from that foundation where at that time I was in ministry. I was pouring my life into other people within the four walls of the church as my husband was out in the workplace. And I also got to stay home with my kids for a little while and raise them until they were all in school. But I would say now that fight is still in me where I'm like, I'm not going to quit unless God tells me it's time to shut the doors and lay this down. I'm going to fight for this. I think it's so special to now be able to bring the love for people into the corporate space because I was inside the walls of the church and people come to the church. That's how I was ministering to people. But now I'm out in the world where people aren't really used to hearing, what do you mean you love people? That's a weird thing to say in a corporate space. I'm like, no, I genuinely am fascinated with people. I love their story. I'm like, how did you get into this career? But to ask questions about them as a person actually throws people off in corporate. So they're like, why? Why do you care? I'm like, I care because you're valuable. I care because God loves you. I care because God cares. It's so interesting that people don't know what to do with that. Some people are very suspicious of me because they're like, why are you so nice to me? Like, because I genuinely am interested in who you are as a person. I don't want anything from you. I have everything I need. I genuinely care about you because you're a person and you're valuable. And that is the foundation and the perspective I have when it comes to gifts. I think it's a unique gift I have that God has given me to piece these things together in a box and give it to somebody in a meaningful way for them to feel valued and to feel seen. And this is how God is now using me in the workplace to get a hold of his people's heart. And it's an honor to get to do it. And I'm having so much fun doing this.
So good. Oh my gosh, we could talk for hours. It was just so much fun for me. I love hearing you share how multidimensional you are as a person who have such depth. And your story is really important for people to hear because I hear a through line of your ability to decide and see things through. And maybe that was because you wanted to prove a point, but I really believe it goes deeper than that with your faith, your devotion, your obedience, and your unwillingness to let circumstances or perceived limitations box you in. And I really do believe, especially knowing you, that is a huge piece of why you've been so successful in business. I want our listeners to really take a listen. And one of the things I really love about this podcast is I want this to be a podcast that inspires, of course, that educates, but also invites self-reflection and really simple implementation so that each of us can break through the limitations at every level, because there's always new ones, right? These false narratives that we believe in.
I think we can be our biggest enemies because we will compare ourselves so easily to other people and where they are in their journey, instead of seeing it as an inspiration of, oh, I could do that too. In 5 years, that's what I could do. Instead of being inspired by it, they feel deflated and defeated by it because in their brains, they're thinking, I don't even know how to get to that. So their forward momentum stops at that thought of, I don't even know how to do that or to get that. And so they feel defeated and not as good as. And I think instead of having that be the seed that is planted in your heart that then becomes your truth, you look at somebody who's a little farther down the road and thinking that is an inspiration instead of competition. Because there are a handful of other gift curators in the city of Dallas that I could perceive as my competition. I have had phone calls with them. I love what they're doing. I cheer them on. I like their posts. I'm not competing with you because if God called me here, then he's got the clientele that he is bringing that I am supposed to be working with. And so I'm not afraid of, oh, I lost a deal to this person. It's good for them. I'm glad they got to do it. But I'm not going to shrink back because I didn't get that opportunity that somebody else had. That wasn't for me then. But I'm going to keep working. I'm going to refine what I'm doing. I'm going to be a student of what other people are doing in the same space and create new policies and procedures or whatever I need to do to become better and not be afraid to make a mistake. I've learned so many lessons in doing what I'm doing, as simple as I don't use that type of shipping box anymore because it broke twice on the way to where it was going, which cost me money to have to replace the items. And I replaced it and it broke again on the way because I used the wrong box. Something as simple as that, where you're going to make mistakes, just be at peace with that and predetermine how you are going to respond when you make a mistake. Are you going to take accountability and apologize and make it right? Or are you going to blame somebody else and get catty about it? I think there's different ways that you can go about owning things. Yeah, I think if God put it in you, who am I to say, no, I can't do that. That's not for me. I don't know how to do that. On paper, I have no business doing what I'm doing. I don't come from corporate. I've never worked in corporate, but somehow God has opened doors for this to be the path that he has put me on. And I'm going to take it seriously. And I'm going to stay thankful that he chose me to do this. And I'm going to continue to honor every person I get to work with because at the end of the day, I might be the only Jesus that they interact with. And I don't want to lose those opportunities for them to encounter the goodness of God.
It's really evident in how quickly your business has grown and your reach has grown. We could spend another 2 episodes talking about all of those different pathways that have opened up for you. I'm really glad that you shared how faith has played a role in you being able to create this business and a life outside of limitation, coming from a very much male dominated field in the military. And then without hesitation, raising your head, going against the grain and everything that probably in your body was screaming, no, to being like, how can I? Yeah. And not just how can I, but I will, I am, watch me.
And what's funny about that is when you put your name in the hat to go to school, you have to get an approval up the chain of command. Every single person that I answered to up the chain of command denied me going. Every single one of them didn't believe that I would be able to pass this class. And it got to the captain of the ship. And he was like, send her. That is the only reason why I got to go, because nobody else believed that I could do it. And it took that one person, just like what my husband did for me. It took that one person to say, try. I bet you could try. And I did.
So that's a really powerful insight. And here's why I think so. It's everybody up the ranks had a story, a perceived limitation that they projected onto you until it got to the top. And that's really important to note, because leadership and being able to make it to that level of success requires a mind that can see beyond limitation, and someone that is willing to say yes in the face of everything that looks like it's not possible. I've actually experienced that in every corporate job I've ever had. Whenever I work with clients, I work really well with the founder, the top, because when we get together, my heart is, how can I serve you? How can I help amplify this mission that you have? And there's no ego battle. There's no agenda. It's, I'm really here to partner with you. And obviously you have the same desire to grow this thing. And obviously that comes with discernment about working with the right people. They have to have the same heart posture. They have to have the same values and ethics. But when they do, we can make literal miracles happen, which has been such a gift to sit here with you today and to think back. We met not just a little over a year ago, and you had already built a business that was generating over 6 figures in revenue. Mind you, never had set a goal before in your life, which was hilarious. But because you were willing to, what's next, you got to a point where, okay, now this is no longer sustainable. Let me see what's next in partnership to help me speed this thing along. And in the first year, we just ran your numbers. We remember setting the goal. It was like, let's do 10% year over year. That's like a standard, even though we both knew we were going to blow it out of the water.
That's great.
Yeah.
Let's do that.
And how did it feel when we ran the numbers and it was, you had exceeded that and hit 136.5% of the previous year's cap?
I felt overwhelmed. I felt proud of myself because honestly, I have been such a cheerleader of other people and spoken life into so many other people and supported and helped build things for other people. And I think there was still a little bit of doubt in me that I could do it for me, that it was possible for me to do something significant and to actually see tangibly. I don't think it's just dollars. Those dollars and those numbers were also indicators of people that I got to work with and the people that I got to reach. And it was very humbling.
What I'm hearing you say and what I've seen time and time again is a rising tide lifts all boats. And we were never meant to do this alone. If you're someone that has been sitting on an idea, or maybe you've grown your business and you're like, I don't know what to do next, seeking out counsel, connecting with people, getting in rooms where maybe you stretch yourself and it feels really uncomfortable is really important. Just in the same way that you said you couldn't see it for yourself. One thing that I find myself doing oftentimes is when I get in rooms with people and when I work specifically one-on-one the way that you and I have, is I can see you 5 years, 10 years down the line. I can see a vision without limitation because I'm not so close to the business. And I also don't have stories around what's possible subconsciously. And so when I hold that frame, when somebody in your life holds an external frame of possibility, it really allows you, the person on the other side, to say, oh, wow, hold on. If they can see it, then it has to be possible. It's proof to the mind that if they're saying yes and they're going to be here with me, I have an accountability piece, partnership, then it has to work. It's like, people ask, how do you get to the next level? Is you stretch yourself. You get around people that are your expanders, that are maybe a few steps ahead of you or know a little bit more or have a skill set that you don't. And then you plug in and you amplify everything. And the funny story that I'm going to bring us back to, because you're looking at me, you know where I'm going with this, and this is not something, mind you, that I even knew you had an issue with. When I met you, I see people as their fully actualized selves, really embodied, really owning who they are in business, in leadership, in thought leadership. And so it didn't dawn on me that me bringing you to a networking event, and one that I absolutely love here in Dallas, women already connected. It was maybe a couple events in that I had just attended because I had made a decision at one point and said, I don't want to do this alone anymore. And being the connector that I am and being like, how can I amplify her? I didn't know this at the time. Dragged her kicking and screaming inside. She didn't show it until we got there. And she's sitting there. And I just remember you being like, I hate networking. This is terrifying for me. And you're like, what?
Yeah.
I would have never have known because I just couldn't see you in that light.
When I met you, I felt confident in the business that I had, my ability to know what a customer needs, how to build a gift around it. I knew that. I was still a little uncertain about the language around how to tell other people what I was doing and why it mattered to them, or even in a networking space. What I learned was I was really afraid to be seen and perceived by other people. I was afraid to, what if they think what I'm doing is dumb? In a vacuum, I can build this all day long on Instagram, hashtag gifts, but coming into a room where I felt like what I was doing was so less important than the other women that were in that room, I was so scared to feel like I didn't bring any value to a room. In a sense, I felt like my business was the only value that I brought to a room instead of the years, like we talked about, the years of history I have and depth that I have that I can bring to a room. I might not be able to work with you because it just doesn't make sense, but I can speak life into you. I can be a cheerleader for you. I can connect you to the right people, but I was terrified in a corporate setting with other women who are in corporate jobs. And I was like, I won't belong here. I don't feel like I fit here. And you brought me into that room and I was sweating. I was like, I feel so uncomfortable approaching people, starting conversations with people in that setting, which is so strange because that was literally my job in ministry, was talking to people, just be normal, just talk to people. I'm like, I don't know who I am here. Meeting women who were so amazing and so welcoming and so humble and interested in who I was as a person, what I was doing as a business. I would say very 50,000-foot view of what my business was. And they're like, what? Wait, what are you doing? And having to explain it to them. But I do think a lot of confidence came when I really honed in on what my message is and what my language is around what I do. That's when I felt like, oh, now I can come to the table and say what I really mean and not a bunch of words to try and describe what I do. It has built my confidence. I think working with other women that have helped me really refine that and believe in me and cheer me on. And you're such a great connector. You have a gift to connect people, and you connecting me with other people and believing in me too, trusting me with your connections. And it's been a night and day difference being in a room surrounded by other women that are just trying to get after it and build their thing and live their dreams has been inspiring. It's really taken me to the next level. As being surrounded by people that fan the flame in you and aren't intimidated by you, are not competing with you, are not catty, like it's finding your people and a support system is so important when you are building something.
I've heard this spoken so many times where when you have a vision that not everybody can understand or fathom or has ever been made real in this physical reality, it's hold close to your heart the dreams and ambitions that have been put on your heart, those desires of your heart that you are going to be able to walk out in this world and only share them with others in community that are of like mind, because they will help you not only see, but activate and amplify that vision into reality. So I think it's really important. One of the key distinctions I keep hearing is, in order to live a life beyond limitation, you have to really take inventory and be aware of what you're choosing in your life, the type of relationships that you're fostering, the type of environments that you put yourself in or don't put yourself in, and then the choices that you make on a day-to-day basis on how to show up. Like you said, every day is not easy, but every day you can still choose to be disciplined and devoted and take the action that today might feel hard because you woke up tired. But that action compounded over time will give you the result that will set you apart from being the person that lets their emotions dictate how they show up today or what characters they're going to really exemplify in the world. And so it's such a powerful message that you don't have to do it alone. And although you may feel very alone, especially as an entrepreneur, that there is a sea of other people that think like you and want to uplift you, and which is why this podcast was created. I want to platform women like yourself. I want other women that are tuning in to hear what's possible. If we could do it, you could do it.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
And I think you're right. You are the sum of the people you surround yourself with. And when you are going from level to level in your life, there will always be that tension there that will try to get you to quit, because it will require a new level of surrender that you didn't have to have at this level down here. And you have to be willing to make hard choices. And like you said, you have to look and take inventory of your life holistically. What kind of friends do you have?
Yeah.
And that's hard. That's hard, because there are going to be some friendships that are not healthy for you for this next level. It doesn't mean you don't love them. It doesn't mean that they're not good people. It just means they may be pulling you back instead of launching you. What are you reading? How much time are you spending on social media or TikTok, which I'm guilty of, to escape reality? Before you know it, you're 2 hours deep into scrolling TikTok. So it's like setting some parameters around yourself to make sure that you're feeding yourself well. What are you actually feeding your body? Are you being mindful of what you're eating? How are you sleeping? Because that's going to affect how you think and how you function and operate on the next day. Are you drinking on weeknights? Like, these are all really hard questions you have to be asking yourself, and having friends around you who are asking you those same questions because they want the best for you. Hey, girl, it seems like you're drinking a lot and your brain's not working as well as I know it can because you're not sleeping well. So you got to have some friends that you really trust to ask you the hard questions. And then you've got to be honest with yourself. Be like, no, I got to cut these things to be able to reach this next goal I have in my life. And entrepreneurship does get a little lonely sometimes because you're working long hours and there's a lot required of you and you're making hard choices that nobody else can really make but you. Your friend circle might get a little bit smaller, but it's worth it, because if this is what God has called you to do, the sacrifices are worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I just keep hearing like radical accountability.
Yeah.
Everything. We are at cause for everything in our lives. Even when somebody may hurt us, yes, they were in the wrong. And now what? What am I going to do with it? How do I respond to this rather than react or spiral and limit myself in the future? And so it's such a powerful distinction to make, living life like a tumbleweed, where you are a victim to your reality, or looking at life and saying, this is all happening for me, for like, no matter how painful it may feel to my human right now. I know that the big picture is always to sharpen me, to become a better version of myself, and to create something bigger and better in the world. And you are an example of that. And I really want to bring us back to what your characters of resilience and dedication and discipline have built for you and your business, but how that stewardship that we talked about that is so important to you is now rippling out into your clients' lives. And you saying yes, and you being brave, and you making the offer has really changed the trajectory of sales. I know there's one woman got promoted a number of times. What would have happened had you not said yes? And I'd love for you to share what's your favorite story on ROI? So people really get an idea if they're listening and they're like, okay, I'm in business, or even if they're in the beginning of business and they're like, how do I get leads or how do I convert leads? You are like from idea to execution, shortcut the gap from the know and trust factor. And I want people to be able to get a picture of what's possible if they enlist someone like you to come help them.
So I would say my bread and butter is working with people in sales and prospecting, because I get to partner with them and be a part of their sales funnel and their sales strategy, where they might send a cold call, an email, they get no response. And that's the hardest part in sales, is just getting somebody to answer the phone or respond to an email. And I get to come along and then send a gift to that person. Not a branded pen, not a branded tumbler, but a gift that was built specifically for that recipient. And when they open it, the wow factor of, oh my gosh, how did they know this? I guess a gift of being a woman is we are really good at stalking people. So you can use social media at your disposal to find out a lot about people. It might not be in your CRM. You may have no idea. You can find a lot about a person on LinkedIn, on Facebook. Do they have a family? Do they drink? Because sometimes they'll have something in their hand in a picture. You can pick up on clues about a person and build a gift that speaks directly to them. Where did they go to college? What is their alma mater? Use that information. And so it's been awesome to get to come alongside people, especially people who are new in sales and are just trying to get their foot in the door. One of the clients I've been working with since she started in sales about 3.5 years ago, we did a prospecting campaign. We sent 10 gifts every month, and each gift was about $100. So that's $1,000 a month. And her area at the time was the DFW area. And she closed a ton of deals. I don't have the exact numbers, but I think it was after it all dwindled down, she got about 70% or 75% response rate, which was just people emailing her saying, thank you so much for the gift. Now the weight is on her to try and get the meeting on the book. And so about 50% of those were meetings. About 25% of every single one of those gifts turned into a deal that was closed. And on average, I think her deals were about $300,000 a deal. And then the girl, I owe so much of me getting into the corporate space. She reached out to me when I first launched the business, and she was like, will you help me with prospecting? She had moved on to another company, and she needed invitations. She wanted to drop little gifts that were invitations to the people she wanted to invite to this event that was like a Veterans Day event. So we did these gifts. They were like $25 a piece. And she dropped one off. One of the men actually came to her event. He heard their pitch, and he ended up ended up being a $9 million deal from a $25 invitation that like completely launched her business in sales. And she's since moved on to another business, and we're working together. The amount of people that I've had the privilege of working with and just watching opportunities open for them and deals close for them. But those are the two most significant. But I am waiting on the intel on one that we have just finished, which we've never done before. I worked with a sales rep, and we came up with a 3-part gift drop to their prospects. So it was one gift a week for 3 weeks. And it was built around this campaign that they wanted to drive home to these prospects. And so drop one was, I'm waiting to see how these numbers come through. It was an important gift. Each gift was also a client of theirs. Drop one, they are actually a client, but we're sending it to a prospect, but it fits within this theme. Drop two, they happen to be sponsors of an F1 car. So that was a drop. That was a part of this one. Drop three was another one, and they wanted to really play with the AI piece, and they're also a client of theirs. And we, over the course of 3 weeks, we shipped out almost 500 of these gifts.
Ooh, I can't wait for those
So
numbers.
I'm waiting to find out how this turns out, because all of them were cold. They're not warm leads.
Oh, yeah.
So I cannot wait to hear how this one pulls out.
I cannot wait either. We'll have to have you back telling that story in another episode. But I just want to paint a picture for everybody listening. From one $25 invitation, obviously very intentionally curated, and a list also intentionally curated, in partnership with you, generated a $9 million deal. And I believe it was rather quickly, within a short period of time. Within, was it a couple of weeks or months?
Months. Yeah.
Months. So 3 million times 3 years. So 9 million total. What an incredible life-changing opportunity.
Yeah.
You're actually creating a pathway beyond limitation. You're creating a bridge to shortening the sales cycle and being able to intentionally and relationships oriented curate an experience for someone where they are moved to say yes, as long as there's alignment. Obviously, we're not here to hard sell anybody, but you're literally the pathway to ease in growing a business in this day and age. What an incredible partnership for anybody that comes along and hears this episode and sees you on Instagram and on LinkedIn. And I can't wait to have you back to talk about that, because that's really innovative. I've never heard that done before. And you guys are the first ones to hear her say it. And because she is called to this, there is no competition. And even if somebody does try to copy you, it's never going to be the same, because you'll get a new idea anyway. So before we finish up here, I ask everybody this question. I'd love for you to tell me, like, when you hear the words beyond limitations, what comes to mind?
The first thing I envision is a castle, because very few people get to live in those. They're huge. They're hard to build, but people do get to live in them. Envisioning just how big your life can be, and not based off of where you currently are or where you even come from, but just knowing there's so much available and there's so much out there. Why not me? Why not me?
Yeah.
And I believe biblically, God is not a respecter of persons. I came from nothing. I grew up with nothing. We had no entrepreneurs in our family. Nobody in my family went to college. And I got to go to college and build a business. And why not me? Who says I can't? God didn't say I can. In fact, he said I could. And if God said I can do it, then I'm going to do it. And I know he doesn't do things small. Yeah. Go and get the life and fight for the life that you were meant to have, and do not allow those limitations to stop you.
That's why I love that question so much, because no two answers are ever the same. And yours is probably one of my favorites. So
Yeah.
it's so interesting. But I can see that, because foundationally, what it takes to build a castle, there's so much that goes into that.
And so many different people with different skill sets build it. And it comes together and makes something beautiful that people someday tour through. And we're like, wow, look at the craftsmanship of this. And I want that to be in my life. I want somebody to look at my life and be like, look at all of the pieces that came together to build that. And I want to be an inspiration for someone else to be like, if she can do it, I can do it too. And I will not be the person in your way. I'll be the person cheering you on and be like, you better do better than me. You better go farther than me.
What a great way to end the episode. For all of those that are listening, what would you say is the one thing that is standing between them and being able to build that kind of life?
Doubt, you gotta silence. Doubt is so loud and it is heavy. It is weighty. Doubt will keep you from becoming who you were meant to be. And you have to actively fight those negative voices, those lies that are trying to plant themselves in your heart as truth. That might mean going to therapy. That might mean journaling. Whenever you get that thought, write it down and ask yourself, is this true about me? Is this what God says about me? And if it is no, then you need to stop believing it and you need to stop letting it replay in your brain. You might need to surround yourself with better people, but I do think doubt is going to be the number one preventative from you becoming everything that you can be.
Yeah. And for those of you that have been tuning into the podcast, one of my favorite episodes is calling people forward when there is the perceived limitation of doubt being the reason that we stay stuck. We all have self-doubt. The difference between people that are successful and the rest of the world that is not is that successful individuals have chosen to act in spite of the doubt that they feel. They act in spite of the doubt. And so it's how you show up every day that's going to make the difference, regardless of how you feel. So the gremlin in your head will be there tomorrow, regardless. Who are we building life for? Oh my gosh. It has been an absolute pleasure having you on the podcast today. I would love for you to share how our listeners can connect with you. What's the best way to reach out and discuss working with you?
You can find my website. It's giftygal.co. On there, you can contact me and we can work together. That'll be my email that's in there. Instagram is gifty.gal. I am on Facebook. And LinkedIn is actually Raema Mauriello.
Wonderful. Thank you so much for being here with us today. This was such a great conversation. I'm so excited for everybody that's tuning in that's going to get touched by the Raema effect, the Gifty Gal effect in life and business. And all of you will be able to read the show notes and connect with Raema directly.
This is where I will leave you today. If today's conversation shifted something for you, share it with a woman in your life who needs to hear it. That is how this work travels. I'm Zhanna Blazej, and this is Beyond Limitations. The limitation was never the ceiling above you. It was always the story inside you, and you are the author. See you next time.